Hello and welcome to another free code session. My name is Jason Bach and I'm going to start building a new source generator. It's funny, you have a tool in your tool belt that you really like, and you start like if the only thing you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail or whatever the case may be. But I really like source generators. I think it's one of the most powerful features that are out there for C# developers. And as much of a pain as they are to build at times, it's, in my mind, still worth it. So I kind of wanted to do this because I wanted to do a video where I'm literally, or videos, because I'm sure it's going to take more than one, but I wanted to do a series of videos that breaks this down a little bit, talks about why I'm doing the things that I'm doing, why I'm setting up the things that I'm doing. And it's not meant to be like a walkthrough or a tutorial, but fairly close to that. So that's what these next set of videos are going to be. And I think this is going to be a fun one. It's a little bit on the experimental side as well, in the sense that I don't know how much relevance this is going to have, but it's kind of, I think in my mind, cool. And it all started when I saw this tweet. So again, I will have the links in the description for this video so that you can check these out later on. But this is the tweet I saw from Khalid, I think is his name. And he mentions this thing about using extension methods where you can create a deconstruct method for a type, even if you don't own the type. Typically, so what a deconstruct method is, just to be very clear, is it's a method typically on a type. It's an instance method, it's public, it doesn't return anything, and all of its parameters have to be out parameters. If that's the case, then you can do something like you'll see in this image here, where you could say like var year, month, day is equal to something. But datetime does not have a deconstruct method. So what you can also do in .NET is define your own extension method of all the out variables you want, and then deconstruct them that way. And then that just works. So typically if you own the type definition, put the deconstruct method there. I'll talk about that in a moment. If you don't, and you want to have that ability, this is where you can use this deconstruct method. I'm like, I knew about this. I just had kind of forgotten about it. So it's kind of good to have this little reminder. So, okay, cool. That's fine. But then one of the replies is what really struck me, is somebody basically saying, it was a little bit of a shot, in my opinion, saying it was kind of like, well, as good as JavaScript deconstruction, but it still is demanding an implementation. Well, yeah, I mean, if you want your object to support deconstruction, you have to say, how is it going to be deconstructed? There's no, set way to do that. So I'm like, okay, that's a little fair. But then it dawned on me. I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just use a source generator to create deconstruct methods for you, specifically extension methods? Even if you own the type, it will create a deconstruct method for you and create it for you so that you don't have to build the deconstruct method, and then you can just use it, and it will use a pattern like, how many public getter properties do you have on your object? And then it will just, well, I'll also have to put in something there to say, what do the arguments look like? Because typically arguments are done as camel case. So that's a little bit of a detail we'll have to hit later. I don't want to forget that one. But that's what I thought about this. So that if I look at my documentation I have here, so this talks about what a deconstruct looks like and then how you would deconstruct it. So you can either do it as in the type or external to the type, and it both just works. And so this would basically say, oh, I found a type here, point, that doesn't have one, so I'm going to generate a deconstruct like this. The one thing I thought of literally as I was talking about this, and this is the good thing about talking about design and ideas, I did finish it. Well, continue what I was writing. The thing I was also writing here, side note, one other idea is to potentially do it as an instance method if the type definition is partial. Okay, so in other words, if I find this, so we'll put this down here to explain what I'm getting at. I don't know if I copied the closing one. No, I didn't. That's okay. So let's say I found a public partial struct point. Okay. I could do this. And so then what I would actually do is, instead of generating an extension method, I would actually generate a partial struct point. And of course, this would have to be in the same namespace. And then I would say public void deconstruct, and I would no longer need this. Okay. And Bob's your uncle. So this is a to-do in that I want to test deconstruct struct methods as either instance or static. Okay. In the case where I can't, in the case where it is not a partial, then I will have to do it as an extension method within the current assembly. And that's fine. I mean, that gives me an out to do it. I think though it should be on the type itself. And that leads to the question of, an instance versus a static method invocation. Which one's faster, which one's better, and to have this flexibility. And then of course I could also have a configuration file that would say like always generate as extension. You could say true or false. And if it's false, then you're going to try to generate it as a partial if you can. Anyway, that's the intent. Generate these things for you. Now, of course, that's the intent. One other thing to keep in mind is you may have a type that already has a deconstruct, but only has one matching property. Okay. And you have to be clear here. This doesn't have to match a property. This could be a string that just so happened would do like this.id.toString and then return the string out. There's no rule as to say what you're actually going to pass out from your deconstruct. Okay. So this is where it gets a little, well, yes and no, because the thing that I really care about is, in this case, you only have one parameter. So you can have multiple overloads of a deconstruct, but the thing that has to be unique in this case is the number of parameters. You don't have to get into whole types and, which one is more specific than another, because overloading methods can get just ungodly hard. Most of the cases it doesn't, but when you start getting things that match or which one is the better choice, that's very, very difficult. It can be. This case, it just says, if you have one, but I found 3 properties that I can do, then I will also generate the one with the 3 properties. So it's the count of how many out parameters you have. If you had one here that just had 3 strings, I wouldn't do this because, I couldn't generate this one because this would also have 3. I'm sorry. I did this wrong. I have GUID, string name, and then I also wanted out uint age. And then I would also include age is equal to self.age, like that. Okay. But I would do the 3. Okay. So there we go. And, I'm being stupid. I'm saying I would have found, let's just say somebody actually did this. So I found one with 1, one with 2, and I'll be like, okay, I can actually do the one with 3. That's the one that I'm going to be generating. Okay. And the interesting thing here though, is that, to do this name would have to be unique. Otherwise it would collide with what was there. That's the thing about source generators. You have to be really careful about collisions with stuff. Otherwise it may collide with an existing type name. Okay. And I might do something here to create a class name that is very, like, it's like I think I have it down here somewhere. Like this is the name of the file that I would create. But I also may just make this as the name of the type as the extension method, because that would hopefully be unique. If somebody would actually create that, how dare they? So I could also just make this a partial, and then if it collided with something, it's basically forcing you to say, make it a partial as well. You know, generating code is always fun because you have to make sure that you're doing something that is unique as much as you can. Okay. So yeah, generate a unique name for the extension class. Simply is used, but that's blah. Maybe I can reserve a name like auto. Yeah, that's the other thing I said here is I could reserve a name, but then what happens if I have multiples of these within the same namespace? I'd have to do them as partials, you know, and create one or make them all partial. So I have to think about combining them myself. Yes, that would be. So I've already thought about this. I've been thinking about this actually for a couple of weeks now, at least. I mean, if you look at when this tweet was made, it's November 20th. And by the time you see this, it's probably going to be February, according to my schedule, if I remember right. So although I might do like a quick video just to show you this once I get it up and running, because I think this could be potentially really cool. But I've been spending a lot of time just thinking and designing and coming up with all the cases, because you have to. There's so many little corners that you run into with your ideas with this that you're going to run into. Somebody's going to do something somewhere that you did not expect, and you're going to be like, oh crap, I got to handle that case. So that's where I've been trying to go, where would this break, and writing all these down. So the way to make this work is, and I've again been thinking about this, is you want to find types that don't have the deconstruct that we could make. So when you're thinking about the source generator, especially the incremental generator, the first pass of what I want to do is just find type declarations or method declarations. I'm not going to go any farther than that. I'm just going to say if it's a type declaration, I want to take a look at it. Now that can be a fair amount because you may have hundreds, if not thousands, of type declarations in your class, so or in your project. But you know, I have to go down that road. The methods, though, I'm going to do a little bit more and say, does it have the name deconstruct, and can I tell if all the properties are out for an extension method? So I'd ignore the first one because that has to be the this parameter. Okay. So the second pass, if you remember the incremental generator, is just going to return those nodes. I'm still not going to do a lot of work there. At least I don't think I am. Probably I'm going to just say return those as well. Just pass it right through. That final pass where you're actually going to generate source, this is where I'm going to say, first of all, how did I say this? Okay, first I'm going to take all the methods that are in and create a list of just all those methods, because those are the extension methods. Okay. And I'm going to get them as their symbols. So they're iMethod symbols. And then for each type declaration, I'll get their type symbol and say, let's see if you have any accessible property getters. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is say, see if there are any deconstruct methods on the type. Because if there's no accessible property getters, then I don't really want to try to mess with the state. If you don't have anything there, then I really don't know what you can deconstruct. So I'm not going to try to make a guess at that. Okay. So if you do have the properties that I'm looking for, I'm going to then say, let's create, let's see if you have any deconstruct methods already, either on the type or from the extension methods that I found. And if there are none that exist that match the property count, then I can go off and do the generation of the code. Okay. So, and then the file name should be this. It's probably also, well, the class name thing I talked about before above. So maybe I can actually, I already got that idea figured out. So this is what I want to build. And that's a lot to keep in mind. In fact, I may just stop right here and in the next episode say, okay, let's actually go through and start building this thing. I may go through and just create the solution and a couple of the projects, but I'll explain what they are, how they're defined, why I do things that way, talk about that structure first, and then we'll go through and start to actually build the source generator. So I feel like keeping it at this length, at least a little bit for this one right now, is probably a good idea. So, and also today is my wife's birthday, and she hit a magical age, which I won't say, but we're all getting old. So I don't want to spend too much time away from things, and we gave her a gift. I made brownies for later tonight, and it's a good day for her. Always got to enjoy the birthday. It also sucks because I just came back from Dev Intersection. I was there all week, and as soon as I left, like, everybody in the family got a nasty case of what is called H1N1. They were all tested for COVID. None of them have it, but it's basically a very nasty cold, and it's really lingered for a while. I'm still surprised. I'm just wondering when I might pick up it and get an effect from it. But it's definitely hit them for a loop, and my kids were out of school all week. It was a very nasty cold flu, not a stomach flu, but a cold flu. So they're finally, I think, coming out of it, and they're still coughing, but they're getting better. So want to enjoy the day for what it is. So in the next episode, I'll go through the solution and the projects that I have there, why they're there, and then we'll start actually building the code generator, the source generator itself, and see how far we can go. So thank you all for watching. Leave comments and questions below. See you in the next episode.